What's up, everybody, for today's war update, which I think I'm going to call, Could America Have Achieved These Incredible Successes that Israel has over the last few days? And the answer may surprise you, but stay tuned for just a couple minutes. My answer is no. But I probably should rephrase the question. Would America have achieved the successes that Israel has had it launched the same war rather than Israel? The operative word being would have rather than could have. And the reason why I don't think America would have achieved what Israel has over the last few days comes down to two major differences between the United States and Israel. These are crucial differences. The first difference has to do with major opposing views between the two countries and their war doctrines. I'll start with the first obvious one. Let me start that sentence all over again. At the heart of Israel's doctrine is the belief and willingness to do what's called targeted killings or targeted assassinations of enemy leaders, including political leaders, okay? And Israel's taking seriously the idea of killing the Ayatollah, something which America has an aversion to doing. Now, what's the difference here? What's going on here? Israel believes that it's better to assassinate a single leader or a few leaders to avert a war between two opposing armies in which thousands, if not tens of thousands of people are killed. Therefore, Israel believes that you can alter history. That's the right word. Alter the trajectory of history by the killing of one person is better than trying to alter that same history by a war in which thousands of people die and you may lose. Okay? Now, where does America stand on that? Technically, America has a law among its, for instance, in the CIA, they have made a law, whether it's written somewhere or it's just, become a custom, okay? A value, an ethos. America refuses to engage in targeted killings. It is opposed to them. In fact, when Israel pulled off its pager attack in Lebanon against Hezbollah back in September of 2024, I heard several American military people interviewed on CNN and elsewhere saying that America would never have engaged in such an operation. Why? Because it just goes against America's doctrine. To them, to the American view of things, it was too dangerous in that it could have killed too many bystanders. Now, looking back on that operation, it killed a total of maybe 3 bystanders. In 2 of the 3 cases, these were children of Hezbollah operatives that picked up the pager on behalf of their parents, on behalf of the dad, and unfortunately the children were killed. Israel is able to accept those collateral damages, okay, whereas the United States seems to have a total aversion to it. In other words, accepts 0 collateral damage in that type of scenario, and therefore, according to several commanders, they said that they would never have launched or done or executed a pager-like attack, such as this amazing attack that Israel did last September. In fact, that pager attack changed the entire course of the war. That pager attack is what defeated Hezbollah, and that defeat of Hezbollah is what cleared the skies for Israel's current operation against Iran. So, difference number 1 between the United States and Israel, their approach to this issue of targeted killings. It's central to Israel's doctrine. It is illegal in America's doctrine. That's difference number 1. Oh, and by the way, if you want to read a phenomenal book about the history of Israel's targeted killing program, and it's the way smashing successes with a couple unfortunate failures, there's a book by a guy named Ronen Bergman called Rise and Kill First. I read the book as well as listened to the audiobook. Whatever version you get that book, whether in print or audio, it is well worth it. Although it is a nonfiction, it is so well written that it reads like a fiction. And it basically tells the story of the origins of Israel's Mossad and its reliance on this tactic known as targeted killings. Most of them were successful. A couple were famous failures. The most famous failure was when Israel in 1992 killed the then leader of Hezbollah, whose last name, if I recall, was Musawi, and thinking that his death would be profitable for Israel's security, but instead that man who Israel killed was replaced with the far more talented Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, who would lead Hezbollah for the next couple decades until he was killed, of course, in a targeted killing back in September 2024. So I highly suggest that book, both for the knowledge that it will impart, but also because it's a fun read. Now, the second difference between the two countries that cuts to the heart of, again, why Israel will succeed in and has been succeeding in Iran the last few days, but I believe will ultimately succeed. Whereas America is going through the crisis or debate of whether it should get involved at all because of the second difference between the two countries' military doctrines, which is this. Throughout American history, America has been led by a kind of altruism. Yes, you fight a war, you kill the enemy, but then you nation build. You try, there's no other way to say that, nation build. Now, sometimes it's been wonderful and has given great dividends to the world and to America, such as the Marshall Plan following World War II, in which the United States occupied former Nazi Germany, that part of it that remained West Germany, of course, as opposed to East Germany, rebuilt much of Europe, the Marshall Plan again, okay? Nation building, okay, is something that seems to be near and dear to the historical United States. Now, of course, famously, that model has failed in places like Afghanistan and Iraq, where the country went to war not only to depose those regimes, but to try to remake them into an American image. And we know that those were colossal failures, which has given rise to the isolationism that is now, at the heart of this debate, whether Trump should aid Israel or at all or not, okay, with people even being against him bombing Fordo, okay, in an operation that wouldn't put any boots on the ground. Okay, so now, where does Israel stand on that? I would say that Israel historically takes a much more hard-nosed approach. It believes in fighting wars to defeat the enemy and let the pieces crumble where they crumble. Okay, it's not Israel's job to rebuild those countries. It doesn't, or societies, or shape them in our image. The closest that Israel did or came to doing that was back in the war, the Lebanese Civil War. And then the Israel invasion of Lebanon back in 1984, I believe that was, to depose the PLO, which had set up a terror base along Israel's border from which it would launch rockets into Israel's north, the Galilee. In those days, Ariel Sharon, the chief of staff or the minister of defense, I think he was the minister of defense, tried to engineer a peace between that country's Christian president, whose last name was Gemayel. I think his full name was Bashir Gemayel, okay? Lebanon at one time had a Christian majority, okay? The only Arab country in the Middle East with a Catholic majority as opposed to Islam. Today, that's not the case, okay? Today, they're a minority. But in those days, they still had, a certain dominance within the population. According to Lebanon's constitution, the president of the country has to be a Christian, has to come from one of the Christian denominations, the biggest there being the Catholic denomination known as the Maronites. And Sharon, when he was Israel's defense minister, tried to engineer a peace with them so that they would make a peace treaty, basically, with Israel, a league between a Christian Lebanon and the Jewish state of Israel, their common enemy, of course, being Muslim jihadists. And it was a total failure, and Bashir Gemayel was assassinated, and nothing came of this one attempt of Israel and its history to socially engineer things with a heretofore enemy country. Okay, so that's another major difference. Israel is not even considering staying in Iran, occupying Iran, helping them to build a state with soldiers or boots on the ground. None of that. Okay, that's just so far from Israel's war doctrine. Okay, but that same thing historically seems to have been near and dear to the heart of those American administrations that went to war with enemies to then pursue this misguided social gospel, if you will, okay, to rebuild the countries into Jeffersonian American democracies, because that's what will ultimately bring peace to the world. Totally misguided. And of course, America has learned its lesson. I would say in some cases it's overlearned the lesson to the point of not being able to tell the differences between apples and oranges. No one's asking America to invest boots in the grounds with Iran at all. The only thing the maximum that Israel would ever ask of America is to drop a couple bombs on the Fordo nuclear reactor. And of course, I went public on my last couple of videos and told you that I hope Israel does the whole thing by itself with its own soldiers on the ground. First of all, so that nobody takes the credit from Israel's brilliant campaign, that nobody claims they saved the Jews or anything like that. It's a violation of the central tenet of Zionism, which is the Jews can defend themselves by themselves. Yes, we're using American equipment, F-35s, F-15s, F-16s, and Israel is masterfully using those platforms. But the last thing I want anybody to ever say is that they had to come to save the Jews. The Jews are capable of defending ourselves. We're a capable people. We're smart. We're bright. We think outside the box. And I think you've seen that in the last few days, okay? Of any army on the planet, this one most famously thinks outside the box. And which is why I called yesterday's video Niflaot, wonders. Okay, the army here is performing wonders. And of course, I also said for those of us who are people of faith, you know, I definitely believe that God is operating in the background, okay, like he did in the book of Esther. Lastly, before I close the video, last night was an interesting night. Iran has obviously had its ability to shoot ballistic missiles in large salvos diminished. Israel's destroyed something like 40% of their launchers. Yes, it is still launching rockets. They did so last night. I was alerted at 12:30 at night to go to the bomb shelter, which I did. And it was one of the louder occasions. Once, about 10 minutes after I got to the bomb shelter, I heard a series of explosions above me, which were the interceptors breaking the sound barrier to shoot down these incoming ballistic missiles. So it was, let's say, a much smaller scale attack, but it happened to be one of the more louder ones. And this poor sweet dog who I'm helping out to take care of, she was so afraid and shaking in the bomb shelter. I love this dog. I believe dogs are angels in disguise. No, that's not a theological statement. I think I know what you guys, I think you know what I'm trying to say. Okay, I'm not stating theologically that dogs are angels in disguise, but so pure, so innocent, and in a sense, a euphemistic sense, dogs are angels in disguise. And just this, anybody that would put that dog through such a trauma like the Ayatollah deserves to go down to the abyss, to his grave. Folks, that's the war update for now. I hope that helped to explain why I believe Israel's had smashing successes, literally, pun intended, in ways that unfortunately America handicaps itself from having because of its own war doctrine, its own philosophy regarding targeted killings and stuff like that. I side with Israel on these issues. You may choose to side with America, and guess what? That's okay. I'm not out to make you into my image. Anyway, folks, this is Steve the Tour Guide with today's update signing off. Bye-bye.